the rules and pass H.R. 97, the Rescuing Animals with Rewards Act.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 97, a bill to amend the State Department Basic Authorities Act of 1956 to authorize rewards for thwarting wildlife trafficking linked to transnational organized crime and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel, and the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members of 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on H.R. 97.
Without objection, so ordered.
I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 97, the Rescuing Animals with Rewards Act of 2019. I'd like to begin by thanking Mr. Buchanan and Ms. Titus for introducing this important legislation. In recent years, Congress has taken a number of important steps to combat wildlife trafficking, but the situation remains dire. Over the last 10 years, 1/3 of African elephants have been slaughtered for their tusks. 1/3, that's just shocking. Rhino populations have also been decimated, and many other species are at risk. Protecting wildlife is the right thing to do, but it also serves American national security interests. Wildlife trafficking feeds corruption, undermines the rule of law, threatens economic prosperity, and drives instability, and it is carried out by many of the same international criminal syndicates engaged in the trafficking of drugs, weapons, and people. The bipartisan common sense legislation before us today provides our government with a tool it can use to tackle the illegal trade in wildlife. Specifically, it authorizes rewards under the State Department's Rewards for Justice program for information leading to the arrest or conviction of those engaged in wildlife trafficking. This can provide a powerful financial incentive for people to turn in those responsible for this appalling activity. Where I come from, Bronx, New York, we have the Wildlife Conservation Society doing such wonderful work. It's the Bronx Zoo. They are really doing great work in terms of this. And John Calvelli, a personal friend of mine, is at the forefront of trying to save animals and allowing people to understand what is going on in wildlife trafficking. It's very important, and I commend them for their role. So this authorizes rewards under the State Department's Rewards for Justice program for information leading to the arrest or conviction of those engaged in wildlife trafficking. This can provide a powerful financial incentive for people to turn in those responsible for this appalling activity. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge all of my colleagues to support this bipartisan legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from South Carolina.